Welcome to today's episode. We have been on a journey over the last 6 days, and today is a review of that, a looking back at what we've covered. And this is particularly important if you're struggling in your business. And one of the interesting things that happens in business is that you can duct tape it at the beginning. You can just kind of throw it together and get through, and it starts to work, you start to succeed, and then suddenly a much bigger problem arises, and it's like you can't expand past a unseen limit, and that limit is your lack of systems. The problems that this gives pretty significant, like business becomes chaotic, it becomes stressful, your results become very variable, and suddenly you're dealing with customer complaints, your marketing sucks, like there's a whole bunch of issues that come. You start to think that you've got poor people. Whereas in the early stages of business, you're like, man, my people are awesome. We get together, we work it out, we problem solve. But at this point in growth, it's like, oh, no one seems to know what they're doing. No one can work together. This is extremely frustrating. You think the people are poor, but perhaps it's your lack of documentation about how you do things in business. You might be able to do the actual work of your business pretty well, but remember, you not only have that, you also have all of the work of running the business as well. The classic E-myth speaks of this, the technician taking over and just doing that small segment of fulfillment, when in fact, there's a bunch of other stuff that has to be dealt with and not just done, but also done consistently. And so you are left frustrated, you're left anxious, stressed, working long 60, 70, 80 hours, stressed about payroll, wondering when will this get better. In fact, even getting a grip on the problem remains pretty difficult because you're exhausted, you're working 7, 8, 9 p.m., 10 p.m. at night, kids haven't seen you for a while, your wife or your partner's like, dude, what is going on? And then the worst thing is the money game is lacking. Like when all of these problems are going on and you're just firefighting continual problem after continual problem, it's expensive. It's an expensive way to run a business. It costs a lot more because there's a lot of wasted time. There's a lot of people who are just like, well, I've got this problem. Can you sort it out? Because not only are you the entrepreneur setting the direction, you also become the one that they ask for help. And you might say, well, where to? Is there any options for a better reality for you? Perhaps you'd like to return to actually being an entrepreneur, to being able to take some kind of profit, some kind of reward for the risks that you have taken to get to the stage that you are. And the good news is there is a mindset that can open up for you where you see that results come from one thing, and that is your systems. And suddenly business becomes consistent and your people return to being really good again. They're actually like, oh, wow, we're performing. We know what we're doing. You can actually see what work is getting done. They can see what work's getting done. And this is a good place to be. Suddenly your profits are up, your enjoyability of your business is up. It's also worth a whole lot more money. If you take one business without any documentation of how they do their work and you compare it to another, all other things being equal, the multiplier on that second business will be significantly higher. It means that an investor can come in and buy the business and know that it's not going to fall apart because there's no one except for you who knows what's going on. So we went and we looked at the 4 steps. Like, how do you leave this world of business being chaotic, stressing the hell out of you, going through to business being consistent and systems creating results? And we went through 4 big steps: establish, simplify, structure, and scale. And I broke those down for you in detail. We'll just go through the big picture steps. Establish, we're looking at what is getting done at the moment, who is doing it, when's it being done, and how is it getting done. They're the 4 that are required to establish where are you going. Next up, we want to simplify. You see, one of the challenges about systems is it's actually going to allow you to do a whole lot more. And it's easy to go, right, I'm going to create this and I'm going to create this system. But you do that, you've got to remember that someone's got to do the work. And so what we want is to really work out what's the minimum viable systems? Like if you could only have a small number of systems, which ones would you choose that would actually get you the result of a business that works? So we went through those four. What's working right now? What's not working right now? What needs to be working? And then establishing your minimum viable systems. That's going to set your target for where you are going as you get that first system on point and then build it out from there, the second, third. It's going to give you a finish line to say, hey, yeah, this is where we know that our business works with these systems on point. All right, after simplify, now we're into structure. How do you build these things? What is a system? How do you structure a system? And we looked at the idea that if a system creates results, then you want to establish what those results are. Like what's the result of this work? Why are we doing this system? And then thinking about a rough draft, like what big picture processes would have to be in place that would give you that result? It doesn't really matter even if they work, because your next step is to run it and look at the result that you got, comparing it to what you wanted versus what you got. And you're like, okay, hang on. Either they match, awesome, great, that system's giving you the results, or they don't match. And you're like, okay, well, hang on, I wanted this, I got this. What has to change in order to get this result? And so you can go through and start to review the system and refine the system and actually get it so that when the system runs, you get that result consistently every time. It's like, hey, A to B to C to D and outcomes E. That's what we want. We want an outcome of E. Wonderful. We've now got a documented system. This is great. This is your first documented system. And then from there, okay, now it's fun. Then you're into our fourth and final step, which is scale. All right. How do you scale? So we had the idea that you want to copy your templates, copy anything that is a system or a template that needs to be copied in order for it to be used. This means you can have multiple copies of a system running at once. You can have multiple copies of a template being deployed. You don't mess up the work by just going through it. It's like, okay, we've got the master copy. Now we've got a usable copy. So that was our first one, copy. Next up, we've got track. So tracking the results as they get produced. What state is it in? Oh yeah, we're working on this result. We're working on this result. And as you go through the system, they'll move to done and done. And when everything's done, great, the system's done. So copy, track, use the instructions. Guess what? When you set up systems in a way that the instructions get used, there's a lot of benefits. There's a lot of benefits, less errors, ability to have team redundancy, to be able to move quickly between processes. If you have to, you can redeploy stuff and say, hey, we've got a deadline. They have the instructions. It's like doing Lego. It's like doing Lego. See this one back here? Lego without the instructions, super hard. Lego with the instructions, pretty easy. My 10-year-old son built that model with the instructions. I tried it without it, not so good. Very, very difficult. Okay, and so we come to our last one. We've got copy, track, use, improve. All right, so the last one, as you go through the processes, as you go through the instructions, make them better. Is there a link that can be added? Is there a better way to describe the work? And this is an evolution of that idea of rough drafting. So as it goes from rough drafting and it gets run, it gets improved. This Japanese idea of Kaizen, 1% improvement. But you may find when you've got time, you can make big improvements pretty quickly. And then continually assessing though, is it giving you the result that you want? Does this system continue to give you what you want? If this is resonating for you, if you're like, man, I am in this position where my business is good enough to have these problems, like realize you don't get these problems day one. These are problems of businesses that are looking to scale, looking to grow, go from 1 to 3 to 10, to go from 5, 6, 7 people through to bigger teams. Then your next step is to head over to systemio.dev, go through the training that I put there for you. We will continue to cover this as you start to get your mind open to that single idea that systems create results in business and in life. Thanks so much for joining in today's review. I hope you got a lot from it. If you have an insight from like your number one insight, write that in the comments. So look forward to seeing you on tomorrow's episode as we continue this journey into the power of systems to create results. See you then.